This conference will now be recorded.
I am with Pat and Lynne Sevean, who have a unique story in the sense that they are both kidney cancer survivors. They are going to be here to share their story with us. So Pat and Lynne, welcome.
Thank you.
So the first thing what's the first question that's on everyone's mind now, knowing that you're both kidney cancer survivors, is when were you diagnosed and how far apart was the diagnosis?
I guess I'll start because I was technically diagnosed first, and but only a month or so ahead of Lynne, and so yeah. So and then he came along about a month later, and it was we were both picked up by incidental findings. Where like I just went for a checkup and I get kidney stones, and all of a sudden I had an ultrasound, and then they were saying there was a tumor there. The tumor was sitting right beside a kidney stone in my right kidney. And Lynne, he just went for a checkup, and there was a little microscopic blood in his urine, right?
Right.
And then he was picked up through that. And we were both off to have our CT scans, and then on to surgery.
Yes. So I'll start with you, Pat. When you received this diagnosis, what did you feel?
Well, I was typical. I think I was a nurse, and I thought I knew what patients went through, but I was all wrong about that, because I was in shock, and I was just walking around in a fog, and I kind of forgot all the medical knowledge I knew. It just was like, when you're the patient, and you're in shock.
And for you, Lynne, I mean, there was Pat, who received her diagnosis a month before you, so you kind of took on a role of our caregiver, and then all of a sudden there's a switch that has to turn on. Patient. So how did you handle that? And what to first receive Pat's diagnosis and how that affected you, and also after that how it affected you as well as a patient?
Well, certainly when I was shocked when I got it, seeing how it was just a month after Patty. And I guess I was the same as Pat. I was, like I said, shocked. And then I was really worried because, we both had cancer, and, you got your kids and family and all that stuff. And your stuff goes through your mind, like what's going to happen here in the future. And so it happened pretty quick, mind you. So
how long ago was it?
That was in the end of 2014. So we had our surgeries he had his in October, and I had mine in November of 2014. So it's been about 6 years.
Do you feel that as patients your feelings were in sync, or did you live it differently?
Oh, that's
an interesting question.
I guess we were in sync.
We were fairly in sync because we had a daughter that was getting married, and we in October, early October, and we decided not to tell her till the wedding was over. So we, even though we knew everything and we knew we were having surgeries and that, we didn't tell her, and because we wanted her wedding to be a special day and not a day that was focused on us. So we were kind of in sync about our decisions about what we were doing.
Well, nobody knew.
Nobody knew.
No, but us.
And how were you able? I mean, I guess at one point there's the caregiver that has to come in as well for each other. Were you? What is it? Is it a off button that you put patient off, caregiver in?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because it was decided that actually Lynne went first, and I was happy with that because I felt that I was gonna care for him, and then I would go and have my surgery, and but then then I had my surgery, and I didn't really have a breeze. I kind of had some complications afterwards, so then we had to bring in some family to help out, because we just couldn't take care of each other at the same time.
And for both of you, how has this changed the perspective about life, about how you live it today and the future?
Well, I guess we do live it more for today. We
Mhm.
enjoy traveling more and, doing things together more. And like you said, you sort of live more for the moment.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you kind of live from checkup to checkup too,
Oh, yeah.
because you go on the first year, you're checked a couple of times, 2-3 times, then second year 2 times, and then it goes to once a year. And now at this point in time, if you're okay, you're moving to, definitely once a year, and it's a little bit easier when it's once a year, but every year you get that reminder that you have to go and have, your chest X-ray and your ultrasound
Mhm. Yes.
and all of that.
And do you feel that, I mean, even with your children, has the relationship changed or has just stayed the same and life is kind of on a normal road?
Actually, I'd say there was one big change that was made. My oldest daughter asked us when I retired after, because we were both, Lynn was already retired and then I retired after a year after my surgery. Our daughter invited us to come and live with them in the same dwelling. Like, we have separate apartment and everything else, but it was a big move. We moved, 1,000 miles and, kind of almost, and it kind of was a big move, but it was to be closer to grandchild and to be, so our life did change in the sense of our priorities and where we wanted to, and yeah.
Yeah. You're happy with that move as well, Lynn?
Yep.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
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 And our granddaughter,
You gonna answer for me?
oh, sorry. I always do.
Yeah, but yes.
Yeah, our daughter's 4, and we have a grandson in Montreal that we don't see as often. But it changes your life priorities. I think a cancer diagnosis does for a lot of people.
So if you were to have a thought or a message to other kidney cancer patients, what would it be, Pat and Lynn?
I would say do your homework, in terms of asking your questions of the doctors and finding out as much as you possibly can, and use every support you can find. Don't think that you can go it alone, and be vigilant with all your checkups and things that you need to do. And because kidney cancer is a type of disease that actually lingers. It's a sneaky one, and it lingers around for a long time, and it shows up in funny places in the body, and it shows up many, many years later. So you have to really be vigilant with it. You can't be nonchalant about and think it won't come back or it won't return.
Mm-hmm. And does your training as a nurse help you through that, Pat, or is it you
Well,
just?
yes and no. I mean, it did in a way, because I did my homework, and I understood the terminology eventually when the cloud lifted after a few weeks and whatever. But it's just but I very much felt like I was the patient, and I really didn't think of myself as being a nurse.
Lynn, did you find that you were doing your own research or kind of relying on Pat?
I guess I was totally relying on Pat because in the beginning, I don't know if I would have made it out of the hospital without her and her friends, because I ran into a little bit of trouble, not so much with the cancer, but with the anesthetic, and my remaining kidney got compromised, and so I really rely on Pat and thankfully her friends, her other nurse friends. So
Yes. Well, it was wonderful talking to you, and I want to thank you very much for sharing your story.
Okay.
oh well, thank you very much.
Thank you.